Thank you. This is a meeting of the House Motor Vehicles Committee, whatever we are. This is the commission of an error, basically, in announcing the title of the committee here today. In any event, we're going to start. Paul, why don't you open us a word of prayer there, would you would?
Father, we bow before you today to give you thanks for all your blessings that you give to us. We thank you for this opportunity that we can meet together and that we can share in the things that would benefit our communities and our state. As you be in all the decisions that are made here today, that it be according to your will and purpose. For this in Christ's name we pray.
Amen. Thank you, Paul. Well, we've already solved the water wars here today. Just have to look out the window, and I think that's a great result of what the committee has been able to do today. House Bill 468 will be the first one. Representative Coomer, why don't you come forward and tell us about your bill? Hold on a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you for letting me speak to the bill. This is a bill that would provide for specialized license plates for certain classes of veterans, those who've been honorably discharged from their military service branch and who have served as veterans of Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Iraqi Freedom, or the Global War on Terror as defined by the presidential executive order establishing that particular award. It also removes the special status for World War I veterans. As we know, the last living World War I veteran died last month. So that would be an unneeded redundancy or I guess just an unnecessary provision in the bill, in the existing law. That's it.
Okay. Any questions from the committee? Anybody else want to talk on the bill? Give it a thumbs up. All right, there's a move and do pass and a second on House Bill 468. All in favor, say aye. Aye. You got it.
Thank you, sir. Be excused.
Representative Cooper, you are absolutely excused. Go back to Judiciary and give them a piece of your mind since they need it badly. Okay, Mr. Epps, why don't you come on up here? Mr. Carl Van Epps, Representative Epps, why don't you come on up here and tell us what's going on down in Columbus and why you need House Bill 443.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Gentlemen of the committee, I bring to you House Bill 443, which will allow certain rehabilitation centers to obtain permit to operate radar. The only change in the bill says that colleges and universities shall also include any comprehensive rehabilitation center in the state, which is the Warm Springs Institute. Warm Springs is a gym in the state of Georgia. It's part of the state operation that operates under the rehabilitative services of the Department of Labor. The campus is 943 acres. We have 130 residents just in the rehabilitative services alone. There are 37 residents in the hospital. 20 of them are rehabilitative persons and 17 are acute care persons. We have a resolution adopted by the county of Meriwether County requesting this for the safety purposes of the campus. So we ask that you give favorable consideration to including the Institute of Warm Springs as part of colleges and universities for the express purposes of radar use. I have with me today the Assistant Chief of Warm Springs Rehabilitative Service Police Department, if you care to hear from him.
Well, we have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
Down there on, who is down there? Mr. Powell? Okay. All right, Mr. Powell, why don't you ask
Thank you,
Mr. Epps'
my
question?
good friend. I'm presuming that the law enforcement down at Warm Springs, they are post-certified?
Yeah.
Yes, we are. We all are.
We'll recognize you in a second. You can come on up. If you want to come up now, that'd be great. Come on around. Just tell us who you are and when you get over the microphone.
My name is Jeff Boatwright. I'm Assistant Chief of Police at the Roosevelt Warm Springs.
Okay.
And all of our officers are post-certified. officers, full arrest powers in the state of Georgia. I don't know if you've got the full document, but there's two people on the list that show radar has expired. As soon as it's permitted by the state, then we will get back in class and get our two that's not on the list or certified now to run radar.
So y'all do
Stay right there. Go ahead.
So y'all do know that if they're not certified or they've let their certification expire, they're not eligible to run radar.
Right.
Cool.
Any other questions? Mr. Powell has made a move in second. Is there any further discussion? Just one more question. You want to just tell us about the need down there for just a minute in terms of why you need radar?
Like Representative Von Epp said, we have 120-something students there that are in the age group from 18 to 25, 26, with some kind of disabilities, whether it be physical, mental, and they're on the campus walking and moving around on the campus all the time. We have a driver education program that will teach them how to drive and get their driver's license to be able to operate a motor vehicle. We have outpatient doctor's office on the campus, recreation complex with the gymnasium.
But the question about the radar, use of radar, is the question.
Will be for the safety of the campus and the clients.
No other way to stop anybody that's speeding down there
Pretty
without
much.
that. Okay, all right.
Limit down there. It's been years since I've been down to the facilities, but
The speed limit presently is 20 miles an hour, but that will be set by the Department of Transportation when this proposal moves forward. They did a study back in 2006, and we had 700-plus vehicles a day on our campus, in and out of our campus all day. So that was on a daily basis.
Are there any other rehabilitation centers who would qualify under this law besides Warm Springs?
I'm not sure.
Okay. All righty. Okay, we've had a move and a second. Thank you for your explanation. Appreciate it. All in favor of passage of House Bill 443, say aye. Opposed, like sign. Bill carries. You're off and running, Mr. Epps. Very good. Okay. House Bill 357 is what we'll do next. This is Mr. Smith's, Representative Smith's bill, and he's had an emergency in the family this morning and will not be with us, but John Halliburton, representing the organization that's interested in this bill and the PIs, is going to come up and explain that to us. Come on, John. Now, for those of you who weren't here last time, we had an explanation before. And I think we had, there we are. Okay. President of the PI Association is with us. And we can ask any questions. Yeah, it needs to come off the table. This bill has been tabled, and I'm going to recognize Mr. Battle for a motion.
All right. I make a motion that we take off the table House Bill or substitute to House Bill 357.
Okay. Motion to take it off the table has been made by Mr. Battle. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Got one nay. Ayes have it. It's off the table. Go ahead.
John Halliburton. We represent the Georgia Association of Professional Private Investigators, about 600 or 700 professional private investigators across the state. These are licensed private investigators. They go through extensive training to get a license. And then as other professions in Georgia, they go through continuing education every year under the Secretary of State. And then also they can get their license revoked at any time for any type of rule violation or breaking any type of state law. This bill was thoroughly vetted last week for a long time in this committee. We had a lot of questions. Our association believes that the questions that were asked by Representative Powell and Chairman Rice and others have been answered in the information we've given as far as much as we can answer them as far as the states. There's 22 states in the country that allow access. This is for motor vehicle information. Excuse me, 36 states. I had 22 on my sheet. 36 states. That's even better. across the country. Not to confuse this is motor vehicle information held at the Department of Revenue, not criminal information held at the GBI. Some people have been confused on that throughout this, and that's a very important clarification. If you want me to sum it up again very quickly, the Federal Driver's Privacy Protection Act exempts 15 different groups. It allows them to have access to motor vehicle information if the state allows the groups to have access. There's a number of groups in Georgia that have access now, and this would add the private investigators to have access for their work. If you have any questions, I'd be glad to let Mr. Robertson here from the association answer any questions.
Any questions from members of the committee? Just one clarification. If in the material,
I apologize. Yes, sir.
In the material that you did supply, though, I think for the committee's purposes, you did provide the DPPA, federal DPPA on this, and under that point 8, it's for use of licensed private investigative agency. So it's already in the DPPA.
Correct.
All we've really got to do is authorize that use here in Georgia, and it also provides, if I'm not correct here, it provides for the unlawful use on a federal statute basis as well as what we have here in Georgia. Right?
Fines and penalties, yes, sir.
Fines and penalties.
I
Right.
meant to add, this is a very important point. Chairman Rice drafted some language for a sub that says, if you look at there's language in there that says, not only can private investigators be held to state law if they violate a rule, they'd also be held to federal laws and regulations and penalties, which is in the Federal Driver's Privacy Protection Act as well. So state law and federal law.
Okay. All right. Representative Bearden. Chairman Bearden.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Under the current guidelines, how would they go about getting this information that they're trying to get now?
We kind of envision this off the way towing companies get access. 2 or 3 years ago, there was a piece of legislation that passed that says towing companies should be allowed access, and they now have access. And the way towing companies get access to this information is not by having direct access to the electronic database, which is called Gratis at the Department of Revenue. It's through there's a number of companies out there who have established relationships with the Department of Revenue and vetted through the process as far as the requirements they have to meet to be able to access that information. And these companies work in all 50 states around the country. And what they do is they provide motor vehicle information to groups that are allowed to have motor vehicle information. And what they have is a easy way to access the database. It's already established, so it's not going to hit the database any more than it already is getting hit. As far as multiple users, it'll be one user. And these private investigators would go through a company like that, and they would have to I actually have a sample form.
This is the affidavit you're looking at?
Sir?
Affidavit?
Yes, sir.
This is how they currently do it?
This is how they do it in other states, in the tracers form.
I mean, in Georgia, is this how they would currently get the information they want to get?
I'm assuming that would be up to the Department of Revenue to answer that, but that's how we envision
No,
it.
right now. If this
Currently?
currently
They can't get motor vehicle information currently, correct?
at all.
So it's just like the towers, effectively, in terms of...
That's how we envision it. When I talked to the Department of Revenue, I let them speak for themselves, but they seem to be okay with some language they sent us that would require the private investigators to go through a company like that to get at the database. And part of that would be license number and your license number as a private investigator, the reason you're doing it. If you look at that sheet, you have to circle one of the reasons. I think, what was the reason you mentioned?
Well, the number, can I speak?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Go ahead.
I apologize, Chairman. Mr.
Recognize you.
Identify yourself.
John Robertson with the Georgia Association of Professional Private Investigators. In the DPPA, you mentioned paragraph 8, which allows licensed private investigators to allow access to that. They also have to meet one of the other requirements, and the one we would be dealing with is number 4, which means conducting an investigation in preparation of litigation. So what we would do is sign on with this third party. We would have to supply them with a copy of our license from the state to practice and to conduct investigations, copy of our insurance policy that we have to be licensed with the state, a copy of our driver's license. We cannot have a post office box. We must have a verifiable street address for our office. Then at the time we wanted to request this, we would send in a request, and we would have to check one of these permissible purposes under the DPPA as to why we are seeking this information. and generally it would be that number 4 item on there that we would be checking. And also this, the one sheet that Representative Bearden has, it says uses of the data there in the middle section, and if you look at the top one on the right, the little square, you would check in connection with a court proceeding. But the I've talked to another company, auto data providers out of Tallahassee, Florida. They're the ones that the tow truck operators go through, and that's why I'm stating to you today what they have told me last Friday, and that is that we would have to furnish all this information, set up an account, and then after we have an account set up, then if we use it, we have to check this permissible purpose. Then if there's an audit of any type and you found that you have obtained this information in contrary to the permissible purpose that you checked, then you're going to be subject to the fines, penalties under the federal law and also under state law. And I guarantee in the state of Georgia you'd have your license revoked by the Secretary of State's office.
Thank you. Mr. Powell?
Question, Mr. Halliburton. I noticed that you were using the example that the towing operators, but is it not a fact that the towing operators, that they are specified by Georgia law that they have to notify, in the case of a non-consensual tow, they have to notify the owners?
Yes, sir, within a certain amount of time. Mm-hmm.
Further, if I might, and I don't have a problem with private investigators. I mean, I understand. I was on the old industry committee, and for years I handled a lot of their legislation, but I guess the problem that I had the other day, and I still have a problem, even though under the federal guidelines of permissible purposes, this creates to me, the problem that I have with this is it as an invasion of privacy. Not private eyes aren't post-certified, and the whole thing revolves around investigating for civil litigation. Do you not see a problem in this as opposed to post-certified law enforcement? I mean, the other day when we heard this, the take on it, the primary take of the argument in favor was of doing criminal investigations. Well, quite frankly, private eyes don't do criminal investigations. They might do in-house investigations that's turned over to post-certified law enforcement. But in fact, is this not to give them right to tap into gratis to see whose car is where so that they can use this and turn it over to attorneys and such? Is this not really and truly what this is about?
I personally have no problem with them accessing the information. No, sir. As far as, and I can let Mr. Robertson speak more on it, I would assume this would be used more in civil cases than criminal cases.
That's correct, it would. I was asked examples last Friday, and I mentioned that the one case that we have that is leading to criminal prosecution regarding the theft. I mean, that theft is costing one of our members' clients over $100,000 a day in civil, problems, civil losses that they have that they could redeem civilly. So in addition to that would come the criminal. And then we kind of got off more on the criminal thing than the civil thing.
Mr. Robinson,
yes.
In the case like that, when a private investigative firm or internal security, say for a company like Sam's that has their own security folks inside, when they're doing an investigation, they co-opt with the local law because the local law is the ones who are officially going to press charges or to carry the charges forward. So in a case like this, wouldn't the proper course be, if they have suspicions they want to check driver's licenses, to turn those over to post-certified officers in cooperation with an investigation?
Yes, sir. You would cooperate with the local law enforcement for the criminal side of it, and then we would be the ones that would handle the as far as preparing a case for court for the civil litigation, getting the attorney up to snuff and everything, what's going on.
In general, all that information is going to come through the post-certified law enforcement officers then, so that would be available at that point. In civil litigation, wouldn't it? Not
in civil litigation. I mean, if we're cooperating, if it turns into a parallel criminal investigation, then, but a lot of these don't do that. A lot of these, They just don't for a whole number of reasons. Law enforcement don't consider it a big problem, or in their area, or they don't have the manpower to conduct a criminal investigation. But we still have to go forward on behalf of our client on a civil litigation matter, and that's why we would need access to this information to carry it on. If the law enforcement, if it is right now, if this bill doesn't pass, the law enforcement cannot tell us who that tag is registered to. They're going to be violating this DPPA if they disclose that information to us. So, we're shut out of that information by the law enforcement people.
Any other questions, Mr. Powell?
I'm reserved judgment. I may have a few more, but
I got a question on the 36 states, including several of our neighbors down here in Florida and Mississippi and Alabama and so on and so forth.
Yes, sir.
Are the provisions set forth in 357 the same or similar to other states, or are there other restrictions on the use of the data in other states? Can you answer that for me?
I don't know of any restrictions. There's 2 states that I was able to obtain the forms they used to obtain this information, and they exactly parallel the DPPA as far as your permissible purposes and that sort of thing. Also,
and those states are?
I'm sorry?
Those states are?
The 2 I have is Oklahoma and Michigan. I don't know if it should have been part of the package. Maybe you got it, I don't know. But those were the 2 that I just obtained the forms from. But so they do it different. Some states you can get an account directly with the state, and some states you have to go through this third-party accessors to the data.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for the witnesses and the erstwhile author of the bill, or the what should I say, the transplanted author of the bill? Okay, gentlemen, thank you for your appearance here. Does anybody else want to speak on for or against House Bill 357 today? Yeah. Many members want to see the other states that are there. You can take a look at that. Okay. I don't see anybody else. The department have anything to say about this, Mr. Hooper or Mr. Mitchell? Okay. Well, we're at a place where we're going to hold for about 30 seconds till the rest of the committee members can get a look at this information. Okay. Is there any? Go ahead. All right. Question?
Question.
All right. You want to come back up?
Yeah.
John, you want to come back up? And Robert?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The question I have is there's, out of these 36 states, of course, that completely surround us, as I understand, Alabama, Florida, South Carolina, North Carolina, Tennessee.
Correct.
They're all around. Well, there should be evidence enough in numbers of states that have this now.
Correct.
Have there been any, to your knowledge, any problems or litigation as to violation of any privacy by any of these states?
That's a really good question. I'll let Mr. Roberts answer that.
No, sir, there's none that I know of. I put out an email on Friday after I left here and got home, and I asked, nationwide through different other associations if they had any good stories, bad stories, and I got back no bad stories.
So we don't know.
So,
with the exception of what you did, then
right, that's correct. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And if I may say, if I wanted to access a South Carolina license plate, I have to go through a licensed investigator in South Carolina, and I have to go through exactly the same procedure. I have to demonstrate what my permissible purpose is, and before they will even run it for me. They won't just run one because I call them up and ask them for it, because they put their line when they run.
Okay. Is that your last question there, Mr. Battle?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Any other questions of the witnesses? Thank you very much. Is there a motion on House Bill 357?
I guess we'll vote on it. I'll make a motion we do pass.
Is there a second on House Bill 357? Subsequent motion. I'll recognize you for a motion.
I move that this committee recommends a do not pass recommendation.
The motion has been made for a do not pass recommendation on the bill, and that takes precedence, I believe. And we'll call. There needs to be a second to that, Mr. Bearden.
Well, since we're playing poker here, I'm going to raise the stakes and say a subsequent motion to put this back on the table.
That takes precedence.
Second.
All right. Well, all in favor of putting House Bill 357 back on the table, say aye. Aye. Opposed? No. Ayes have it. It's back on the table. Okay. All righty. Moving right ahead. We have a wonderful day in store for us here. Mr. Powell, Mr. Beard, you're both excused for the rest of the day here. No, I want you here for this one, too. All right. All right, we're going to call House Bill 328. Representative Sims, you want to come up and tell us about House Bill 328? Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. I'm bringing House Bill 328, LC 343005S. This House bill addresses the overall safety and operating personal transportation vehicles. It allows local municipalities to issue ordinances regulating their respective boundaries. Georgia is the world capital of the PTV industry. That with having 72 dealers in Georgia, 680 employees within that 72 dealership, it has the vast majority of vehicles sold in America. This is an organization, a company, industry that really has a tremendous impact on Georgia's economy. There are industries in Augusta, in Newnan, Georgia, 2 in Augusta and 1 in Newnan, Georgia. 1,500 and more jobs are created in Macon, Forsyth, Vidalia, and Louisville. This House bill does not apply to local governments who have already set up their rules to allow these to be used, such as Peachtree City and Tifton. Additionally, it will allow local governments who do not want to allow the vehicles to simply opt out. This bill is actually trying to give communities the responsibility that so many times they've asked for, local options, and we're hoping this is what we're providing within the framework of this bill. Plus, it is providing the first safety aspects that have ever been attributed to the golf cart industry.
Okay, I assume that's the extent of your description of the bill.
Yes, sir.
Representative Sims. Any questions of the representative? Representative Battle.
Yes. Thank you,
Yes.
Barbara.
Thank you.
It's much easier to say that than it is Sims. But I see all of the accessories that have to go on the
Correct.
vehicle itself. And my question is a liability, the use and how that liability applies to a vehicle, not a car, but is there special insurance that has to be for these
That
vehicles?
is going to be up to the local communities. If they want to put that requirement on there, yes. This bill does not address that.
Okay, so that there is no liability insurance as far as the operation of this vehicle?
No, sir.
Okay, Mr. Bearden.
Thank you, ma'am. On page 2, lines 54 through 56,
Yes.
talking about that the counties or municipalities may require local registration and licensing, and also proof of, appears to be proof of insurance on this. If a golf cart is stopped, would this fall under a local ordinance, or would it be Georgia state law for operating a motor vehicle, since we're giving them the same rights of a car? So would they be charged no proof of insurance under the state statute, or would it be a local ordinance? Or
This is under local ordinance. This is why we're doing this, because the counties and the municipalities, if you'll see in on 47, Section C, the counties and municipalities may, and all of this falls under the county and the municipalities. They will set those parameters for the golf carts.
okay.
Other questions?
Yes.
Representative Battle.
I haven't looked at all of this, but is there a age requirement of operating these and those?
Not within the county. Whatever the county decides. I know Peachtree does not have one. I know Vidalia does not have one. There are a lot of golfing communities that allow children, and I say children. I do not know the ages of the ones that the counties provide the access for, but I know that they did not require licenses, driver's licenses, because this same bill was passed last year, and because we had included driver's license on the bill, it was pulled by request of those golfing communities, because their municipalities already had set up what they provided, and it was not an age limit that I know of. You're back.
Representative Bearden.
I got a question for the chairman. Since you've been here for a while and understood all this longer, see if you can help me out here. On page 3, lines 67 through 75, if we're talking about giving the vehicles full use of a lane of a road, then the guidelines of the rules of the road must be enforced, so there would be an age limit in place if they're driving on the public roadways, correct?
I'm going to ask Ms. Sims to answer the question.
They are entitled to drive on the roads anything with a speed limit under 25 miles an hour.
Excuse me. The answer to your question is found in Peachtree City, and their capability under ordinance to ride in Peachtree City on the public roads down there. I mean, that's been long in law. I can't reference the law for you, but the fact of the matter is, I mean, in ordinary circumstances, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think that's true.
Because I have to refer back to Douglasville, where we had golf courses through Canongate. The complaints were you had 9, 10, 11-year-old kids on the roadway. And at that point, it becomes the official rules of the road under Georgia code. And without, I just feel like once they get on the roadway, then they're going to have to follow under the requirements. Legislative Council, that might shed some great light to this.
I'll ask Mr. Rusko if he wants to comment on this. He may not want to comment on this.
He raised his hand.
Okay.
I think the answer to your question, Mr. Bearden, can be found in 76 through 80, that a local governing authority may adopt by ordinance traffic regulations regulating the use of personal transportation vehicles on roads and streets under its jurisdiction. So on the roads and streets that are under the city's jurisdiction, they could, and also the further requirement that the speed limit is not 25 miles per hour, they could enforce the laws the way they have the laws written. If you get onto a state route,
if there are many that are under 25 miles an hour, then you are correct. Then the uniform rules of the road would apply on there. But what this bill is trying to do is to give the cities and counties on roads that they control the ability to set up the regulations the way they see fit.
And thank you for pointing that out.
I think your question goes to the question of a two-lane state highway running through your area, and a person decides to run their golf cart, their 8-year-old kid decides to take the golf cart across that road. Is he in violation of the law? And my guess would be he'd be in violation of the law on a state basis if that's the correct interpretation. Okay, all right. Mr. Powell, why don't you get into this discussion?
Well, I'm sitting here, I'm listening with interest, and I do see some flaws. But, Rick, over in Peachtree City, since this is the model that started a lot of things, is there an age restriction?
I am not an expert on that. I have heard a lot about the Peachtree City ordinance, and it's just that it's an ordinance that we authorize them to do their ordinance. I get the understanding, and there may be an expert who knows more about it than I do, that there is no age restriction down there. I have never actually read their ordinance, so I can't answer for sure. I know they're not required to have a driver's license, and I assume that's tied to the age requirements in order to get a driver's license, so that's why I assume they do not have an age limitation.
Probably wouldn't be under 8 years old. If not, we'd have them in a child restraint seat.
Very, very good point.
As the author of the erstwhile legislation, and there may be some other people who can shed some light on that here for us, because we've got some representatives of the Municipal Association here to speak on this bill also. Are there any other questions of Ms. Sims? Is there anybody else who wants to speak on behalf of this bill? Anybody else want to speak on behalf of the bill? Thank you, Representative Sims, for bringing the bill.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else who would like to be recognized to speak on the bill? I think we've got some people from the GMA here who want to do that. Come on up, Roshi. And you'll just identify yourself and tell us who you are and what you do and who you're with.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Rushi Patel. I'm with the Georgia Municipal Association. I'd like to thank the author for working extensively with us on this bill, and we do agree with certain safety provisions of this bill, and she's worked with us on those issues. We do have fundamental, and we've agreed to disagree on some issues with the opt-in, opt-out procedure in the proposed legislation. The safety features in this bill, we believe, will provide a good base for manufacturers and cities in these types of vehicles. However, current state law, Code Section 40-6-331, allows cities to opt in to allowing these types of vehicles on their city roads. This proposed legislation will go to the opposite extreme and make cities opt out. And it provides a time period to January 1st, 2012, which is 7 or 8 months away. This, we do not believe, gives cities enough time to get this together. There are 529 cities, not counting consolidated governments, in the state. 23 do have current ordinances dealing with these types of vehicles. So there's going to be over 500 cities that will have to be notified of this, educated on this. We believe that a better approach would be to keep this as an opt-in idea, work with the manufacturers in getting together model ordinances. We have a convention in June of every year. We'd like to work with them through this procedure and get together something that can work for both parties, but keep an opt-in for cities, because this is a different type of vehicle than we normally see on most city roads, and it could cause problems in cities that aren't aware, and we might not be able to get ordinances in place in time, basically. I'd be glad to answer any questions.
Any questions for the witness? Mr. Bearden.
With the Make sure I got the right bill in front of me.
328.
Now, this is, so you may not have time to get ordinances in place. Will the effective date of January 1st, 2012 not be sufficient, or if we moved it out to maybe July 1st, 2012, would that give you more time to?
That would still be pretty difficult. There are over 500 cities that do not have ordinances dealing with this type of vehicle, and a lot of these cities are small communities, and getting them to understand how golf carts could be beneficial to their community and why they may want to allow this or disallow this, and educating them on low-speed vehicles is a time-consuming process, especially when you have 500 different locations. That's why we believe that an opt-in would be a better idea, because if you have to opt out by a time period, they only have a certain window to get out of allowing these vehicles there. We might face liability issues after that, where police officers might not know that these vehicles are now allowed on their roads, and they might pull over somebody and issue them a ticket when they shouldn't have. So there's a lot of issues related to that. In addition, there's actually that provision requiring local registration and licensing. In current statute, there is a provision that allows local registration and licensing. There's also a fee that's allowed. So this bill doesn't address that fee. The fee in current statute is $15. And if they're going to be issuing,
I don't think you like the way I would address the fee. It'd be zero. Just
Any other questions, Mr. Beard? You finished?
no, I'm done.
Any other questions of our witness? Have any of your communities expressed any heartburn associated with this bill?
We've I haven't personally spoken with any of these communities. I'm sure there's other GMA staff that have. I've spent most of the time actually here at the Capitol the last few weeks.
Okay. Mr. Powell?
Mr. Chairman, I support, and I'll have to apologize to the committee. I did not read this full bill in its entirety before it came forward. While I support the concept of these alternative vehicles, there's certain things that I see are some glaring errors that's not traditional for what this committee has done in the past. One is the age. There needs to be an age limit. If we're going to have people on the roads, then they need to be of a certain age. We can't allow, quite frankly, we can't allow children on the roads because of the safety factor. And the others, I think that we need to take into consideration rules of the road, because when they are on that road, even though it's 25 miles an hour, that's going to have to be addressed. And I think those issues could be addressed and cleaned up in this. But be glad to work with the author or whoever. I mean,
any other questions for the witness? You can be excused.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Is there anybody else who'd like to testify on this bill? Yes, ma'am. Come on up and tell us who you are. Since you're wearing a badge, you must have paid the price of being up here then, I guess.
Well, I will say, Megan Middleton, Intergovernmental Affairs Manager for the City of Atlanta, so I paid for the badge.
Okay.
I did want to say that we support GMA's stance on this. We do understand the intent of the bill, and have nothing against golf carts by any means, but because of the time frame for opting out, we do think it should be more of an opt-in. And City of Atlanta, if it was an opt-out provision by January 1st, we have a lot of streets here, we have a lot of state roads that we have to deal with, neighborhoods, varying neighborhoods. So we would like the option of opting in. That would be our first preference. But I did want to, you did ask if any of the cities had expressed any concerns, and we do have that concern with this bill.
Okay. Any questions? Thank you so much for coming by. Anybody else who'd like to testify pro or con on the bill? Well, that's kind of where we are right now, I guess, then. I asked, told Ms. Sims that this was a hearing today, and that we'll suspend action on this bill until I think it'd be good for some questions to get answered here in terms of maybe looking at the questions Representative Powell's raised, and we've discussed some of these issues before. So with that, we will adjourn. Thank you.